This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugatz podcast.
You guys are going to have to help me because I don't watch Below Deck and I don't watch P-Valley. Are you guys judging the tastes of Jemele Hill when she says that some of the things that she's watching, when you're roaring with laughter, is it because you know something about P-Valley that I don't know?
Yeah, I watched P-Valley as well, and it is as soap opera gets. And I've known this about Jemele. We've been friends for a while. I know Jemele has like two parallel tastes going on. There's like this stuff that she likes that's really well done, well written, and then she just likes the stuff that's, let's just call it fluff.
Junk.
She's got a sweet tooth for junk TV.
She likes that sugar. You have guilty and not guilty pleasures. Below Deck, you're proud of it. You're defiant. You're proudly defiant about, I'm Below Deck. I've been on it. I drank too much. I think there was a penis cake of some sort and I got drunk.
Yeah, that pretty much, God, Dan, that was a very accurate synopsis right there. Yeah, I'm not ashamed of being part of the Below Deck franchise hive. I like Below Deck Sailing, Below Deck Mediterranean. Give me all the Below Decks. I'm here for it. But P-Valley, though, especially this last episode, I think it's one of the funnier episodes. I don't know how you feel about it, or me, that they've ever had. I think I want on my obituary, I hold so you could fly. I want that line on my obituary.
The streets know my knees was the line that killed me.
The streets know my knees. I was like, I was deceased. And I know the head writer and one of the executive producers for the show, and I was emailing with him, Patrick Ian Pope. And I told him there were so many classic lines in this one. Great value, Barack Obama. I mean, it was so much going on, but I really do enjoy some P-Valley.
That is not why we brought her on. We brought her on to talk about Beyonce's new album.
That's right.
Because Mike Ryan's got opinions, and
I love the album. I love I like Lemonade. I really get down with Queen Bee. So what surprised you about this, kids? What?
Okay.
No, so she's obviously, there's this trend going on in hip hop. Drake tried it out too, where you tap into deep house tracks. I think Beyonce did it way better. I love the album. Mixed messages on what the lyrical content is, but Beyonce is very strong and wants to make sure that she projects that. But I don't know, a lot of these songs sound like they're about fucking.
Well, some of them are, to be fair. And she, listen, she's trying to showcase herself as a fully realized woman. Yes, she is the mother of 3 kids. Yes, she is married to Jay-Z. But, when it's time to get down, she down with the get down. And this album, it just sent me through so many emotional feelings. There were parts of it where I felt like my credit score is not high enough to listen to this. There were other parts where I felt myself being transported to Tulum. It was just so much that was going on. But I do think, I know some people have said this is her best album. This is better than B-Day, which many consider to be her best album. I can't really judge because I think this is so different. And a friend of mine who's in the music industry explained something to me, is that artists like her and even Drake, and I know people have banged on him for the project that he put up that is, trying to tap into, that house EDM kind of crowd. But I think music is so fast as the pace of it. And so Beyonce always being a trendsetter, always being a revolutionary in whatever she does, she gave you an album for the club. And I think for the Black queer community, they are just really understandably joyous about this album because they feel like they're being celebrated, much like Madonna did the same, I think, for probably the white queer community. So just for it to be an all hands-on celebration, but Beyonce did cause some trouble in my household. Let me just say this real quickly. My husband, who listened to the album, loves the album. And he looked at me in all seriousness and asked me why I can't talk to him the way Beyonce talks to Jay-Z. And I was like, what?
Oh, no.
Because I forgot what song it was where she said something like, you could just be yourself. I just love it when you're yourself around me or something like that. It was a very sweet lyric. And it was in that moment that I contemplated burying him in our backyard. But, you know, I was like, talk to me like Beyonce. Like, are you serious? I want Beyonce to talk to me like Beyonce talks to Jay-Z, okay? Are you kidding me?
I hope the Beehive knows. I hope the Beehive knows that this is not an insult. I've heard songwriters talk about how collaborative the songwriting process is with Beyonce and how it is with other artists, and she really gets in there. But it's a little weird to have someone else speak on your love life and then you sing it. It just kind of feels a little weird.
26 writers, right?
Yeah,
26 writers?
She works very hard when it comes to the collaboration process, and other people are writing about what it feels like to have sex with Jay-Z. It's just kind of weird. It'd be kind of like if Bruce Springsteen sang some of these lyrics, it would land the same way. Like, cuddled up on the couch, motorboat baby spin around.
Wait, what?
It says that?
Yeah, cuddled up on the couch, motorboat baby spin around. Like you're on Jeff Darlington's finger.
It's not true. It cannot
Hell
be
yeah.
true.
I hope it's true. Put it on the poll as well. When it's time to get down, is it time to get down with the get down? Because I don't know if I was agreeing with that, but I felt like I should be.
And there's distinctive differences. There's the get down, and then there's the get down to the get down. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to, it's levels to it.
It is really hard, though, competitive. We talked about how Troy Aikman is now doing these exercises because he's got to ward off Tom Brady in the booth and young people coming for the spaces that the older generation, the icons, have. The fact that she's still out here, that Jay-Z's not retired, but he's saying, I'm not exactly making music now, that she would continue to rise to the challenge of, at this age, with nothing left to accomplish. Like, we don't have a lot of artists like that.
No, and continuing to set trends. It's one thing to follow trends. It's another thing to be able to set them and to completely change the marketplace. I mean, Beyonce, she was the one dropping secret albums. You know what I'm saying? Like, she doesn't even need marketing anymore. She's just like, you know what? I feel like an album right now. Friday, y'all get one, you know? And so just what she's done to the music industry has just really been transformative. I've been blessed and fortunate enough to see some great artists perform in concert over my life. You know, for a long time, Janet Jackson to me held that mantle. I've seen Janet multiple times and she was great. But I do think now it is, you know, with no hyperbole, really no argument, like Beyonce is the greatest entertainer of this generation. And she's definitely firmly in the conversation, if not leading the conversation for greatest entertainer of all time. And I cannot wait for this tour. Likely I'll have to take out a second mortgage, I'm sure, to afford these tickets. But given how Renaissance, the track flow and the transitions, this is going to be an opportunity. I've already seen her walk on water at a concert in Baltimore, like at MCI Stadium. She walked on water, Dan. Water, okay? And so I can only imagine the type of choreography, the type of routine that she's going to put behind Renaissance. This is going to be her magnum opus. And even though she keeps giving us that every single album. So her level of excellence is just something that we just have not seen from an artist. Very rarely, I should say.
Kiss me where you bruise me. Taste me on that fleshy part.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Taste me on that fleshy part.
Taste me, not touch me.
Taste me on that fleshy part.
Wow, Bruce.
that
Jeez,
fleshy-
I
I
ain't know
scream so loud. I curse the stars above.
Jemele,
Bruce is
I'm
a
talking
freak.
about the clitoris. I'm talking about the clitoris. Yes, I am. Now we're out here riffing. And I'm going to try to find it if I can.
well, wonderful rendition. Top 5 Jemele Hill entertainers she's seen in person. Are you ready? I know you have this in your back pocket somewhere. We already know what number 1 is, but we've got to do it because you've been blessed in your life to see so many of them. We need the top 5, where you were, what was going on in your life. Number 5, Jemele.
Oh man, you're gonna actually make me rank them? Okay, that's fine. Well, there's one I cannot name, so I just have to kick him off the list.
Cancel.
You know, I can't name him. I just can't. But it's unfortunately true. So let me go 1 to 5. Or no, I guess that gives away this.
Well, we already have number one. No, this is hard. This is not easy to do on the fly for anybody. So I'm going to filibuster for you a minute here, but I am confused. I believe perhaps you've been to an R. Kelly concert.
No, don't say the name.
I don't know.
Dan, what are you talking about?
Come on.
Banned, I
Damn
tell
it,
you.
I'm such an idiot.
Dan.
I'm number 4.
Okay, I'll go 5. I'll go with 5. 5 is Mary J. Blige. I've seen Mary J. a number of times. I mean, she would be. She would be in my top 5, but that other person is permanently banned. They cannot be in it. Okay, but 5 is Mary. I've seen the Share My World tour.
Oh wow.
God, I've seen. I've not My Life. What was after Share My World? Whatever was after Share My World. I've seen that. I've seen her at least. I don't know, probably 6 times. So love me some Mary. Yeah.
You gangsta motherfucker. Boy, you growing on me. I just want to touch you. I can feel it through your jeans.
Fleshy part.
Number 4 for me in terms of great performances I've seen in concert, I would say Jill Scott. I saw Jill Scott in a club. I saw Jill Scott in a club called, it's not even a club, it's called St. Andrew's Hall. It's in Detroit. And it was with a then boyfriend who was a terrible person, but we're not going to even get into that. But the one thing that I got out of the relationship was Jill Scott, because he introduced me to Jill Scott, and during a blizzard of epic proportions, he drugged me to see this woman I had not heard of, and this was her first album. So getting in the way was just kind of coming out and really gaining some momentum. And when I tell you that's one of the most fabulous vocal performances I've ever heard, it was astonishing what this woman can do with vocals. Number 3.
He didn't give you anything else, this terrible person that I thought you just said drugged you to a concert because you said he was a terrible person and you got only one good thing out of the relationship? Jill Scott. I left with Jill Scott, and I consider myself lucky because of it. We had some other drama going on there, which will be in my forthcoming book, October 25th. In October, all the details. Jemele Hill, as you've never heard her. Number 3.
Number 3 is going to be Prince. Okay, so, and I know it seems bizarre to have Prince at 3rd at anything, but I saw Prince twice. I saw him once at the Palace, and this was the year that the Pistons won the title. And Prince, I never will forget, he came out to do this particular set of his concert. He had on a Tayshaun Prince jersey, and he did it all acoustic. And he said, just basically yell a song at me and I'll do it. And he sat there and riffed on other people's songs for a solid 15 minutes. And he did all their songs better than they do their songs. And not to mention, as he is customary with his concerts, he does a 20-minute version of Purple Rain to end every concert. And it's always different and it's always glorious. So I saw Prince, pre-Jehovah Witness Prince, which was Nasty Prince, where you got Insatiable and Him Humping the Floor Prince.
Yes.
And then I got post Jehovah Witness Prince, which is still a great Prince, but he just didn't do as much of the nastier content. You know, you didn't get the international lover Prince. You know what I'm saying?
Pretty tickle bitties.
That's my song. First of all,
the tickle bitties.
No, tickle. Well, I have them. They're not my thing.
That's a jam,
but
though.
Church Girl. Oh, that's my song of the summer. Even though summer's almost over. Number 2 would be Michael Jackson. When I was 6 years old, I saw the Jacksons. I should say, to be more accurate. My stepfather won tickets off the radio. Talking about a once in a million thing that happens. He won tickets off the local radio station. We were in nosebleed seats at the Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan, which doesn't exist anymore, where the Lions used to play. And that was maybe the greatest concert I've ever been to because of the fact that it's Michael Jackson, it's the Jacksons. And, you know, when they do that move where they touch each other's shoulder and then they all look ahead and point, I think I might have passed out. I think I blacked out at that moment and I was 6. So and now, of course, number one is Beyonce.
It's kind of sad that the Silverdome no longer exists, but the Lions still do. Should be the other way around.
That's messed up to me.
There was a time we were talking about trying, because it cost like $1 million to buy it as a bachelor pad if you were willing to pay the taxes because it was in such a state of disrepair. Before we let you go, though, Jemele, I did want to ask you about everything that just happened with Deshaun Watson. We're going to have Mike Florio on here in a little bit to talk about the mechanics of the legalities, but what was your takeaway from everything that happened yesterday and was in the report by the independent arbiter?
I'm not sure if I can't say what is when you have that many, civil lawsuits pending concerning the serious nature of what he has been accused of. I don't know what's the number, right? So in a way, I don't want to sort of stray into the territory of saying like, oh, it should have been 11 games or 12 games or this or that. It's not about the games. It's about the fact that some of the things that this arbiter sort of admitted were disturbing and just didn't really coalesce with what the punishment that was actually issued. So you can't tell me in a ruling to say that Deshaun Watson, in looking at the facts and your expert judicial opinion, is such a predator that he should not be able to have masseuses outside of the Browns facility, but yet here's 6 games. Or saying things like in the report referring to what he put some of these young women through as non-violent sexual misconduct. What does that even mean? So once again, the language around how we talk about sexual assault, misconduct, those sorts of things is the most bothersome part. Where I read the report and what I got from it is like, oh, he's a creep, but he's not a dangerous creep. And I don't know. And I'm just, again, appalled, disappointed, as I often am, in just the message that sends to women, which is often that we just have to tolerate the bad behavior of men at the risk of our own personal safety and discomfort and just kind of live with it, because there are just not enough corrective measures in place that will actually check this behavior. Once again, it remains fully on women to police the behavior of men. And so I was more disappointed in the report and the ruling that was issued than I was in the actual punishment because of the message that it sends. The optics of this are bad. At the end of the day, Deshaun Watson, this is only going to cost him in terms of salary, $330,000. He's going to settle, I'm sure, some of these lawsuits. So this, and everything that he's gone through, and I realize that his personal reputation is obviously taking a hit, but there was more reward in this than there was actual consequence. And that's the part that always will disturb me. A lot of people are looking at the fact that he didn't play last year and try to make that some sort of punishment when it wasn't a punishment. That was trade strategy. That was not a punishment for what he was actually accused of. So once again, here we are back into the familiar hamster wheel of telling women that they don't matter. And when it comes to the issue of sexual violence and sexual misconduct, our safety will always be leveraged, will always be compromised, if not completely overlooked, as long as you are able to cheer on your favorite athlete. He got rewarded with the biggest contract for a quarterback in NFL history. That was his consequence for all the things that he has been accused of. And I know there's going to be a litany of people, especially men who, already have flooded my Twitter timeline. And I'm sure after hearing me talk here, we'll talk about the court system and, he was never charged. And the people who say that really don't have a firm understanding of what happens with sexual assault in court cases. Ultimately, in many of these cases, it's about one person's word against the other. The number of false reports are so low, and they try to make that sort of the excuse and the reasoning as to why, someone like Deshaun Watson should receive the benefit of the doubt. Now, I don't know what happened. I cannot obviously speak to his guilt or innocence, but I do know that if you're accused of this type of behavior this many times, everybody can't be lying. Everybody can't be after your money. And we're talking about women across multiple states who have no connection to one another. And if you read some of these complaints in detail, you will see that there is a very clear, disturbing pattern of behavior. The rate of conviction for sexual assault and misconduct is very low. It's what it is. And so we don't even have a judicial system that is adequately set up and prepared to deal with this issue. So in many ways, I should not be surprised that this is the outcome in dealing with a arbitrator who is linked to a professional sports league.
I thought it was oxymoronic, nonviolent sexual assault, that those things couldn't exist in the same phrase without bouncing against each other. What did you make of the female arbiter defining violence the way that she did, defining danger the way that she did?
So I'm going to speak to this, Dan, from a very personal standpoint. You know, when I was about, 11 or 12 years old, I was nearly raped by the friend of, my mother was very close to a woman, and her brother tried to rape me when I was that age. And thinking about that encounter and how this judge termed that phrase was such a soul-crushing thing to read. Yes, I was able to escape my attacker without being physically harmed, emotionally damaged for sure, always will be in many respects. But to tell women who have experienced what I experienced, even worse, and just because there wasn't an actual rape, to tell them that what you have gone through is, well, you weren't raped, so not that big of a deal. It's just crushing. I mean, it really is, because as somebody who survived something like that and had to fight off an attacker when I was that age, and I'm dealing with a grown man, I mean, just because he didn't hit me in the face doesn't mean that there wasn't some kind of damage left. And I think for a lot of people who have survived or even been assaulted, this is just, that's the kind of language that makes it dangerous for women out here. My mother's a rape survivor. There have been other women in my family who have been sexually assaulted. And so to see that and think of them, it made me quite emotional, Dan. So I just, the callousness of those words, we talk, I know some people have probably taken it and used it as a catchphrase that they put right in the basket of woke and other terms that we have termed to sort of be meaningless. But rape culture is real. And that to me is a significant, rape culture won that day when people read a phrase like that.
Jemele, always good talking to you. Thank you for being on with us.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Jemele.
Sugats here for my friends over at Simply Safe. Around here, we talk a lot about the importance of good defense on the field or court. But what about defending your own home turf? Pretty important, huh? We believe home should be the safest place on earth for every family, which is why I use and recommend Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe is advanced whole home security that puts you, your home, and your family's safety first. Here's why I love it. Easy to install. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And I love to be able to keep an eye on my driveway to see what packages are coming up, keep an eye, see when the kids get home, when I'm away. I love Simply Safe. It is amazing. Simply Safe offers comprehensive protection, not only against intruders and burglary, but against expensive home hazards from flooding to fires with 24/7 professional monitoring. Simply Safe's agents take action the moment a threat is detected. You can customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/DLB. Go today and claim a free indoor security camera plus 20% off with interactive monitoring. Again, that's simplysafe.com/DLB.
Dan Le Batard.
Ron Karkovice beat Caminetti in terms of rugged hand.
I think so.
What about Derek Bell?
We're talking Karkovice and Ken Caminetti. I don't think Derek Bell is in that conversation.
Hal Morris?
How about Mo Vaughn?
Mo Vaughn might be in the
Mo
conversation.
Vaughn's a good one, but he doesn't have rougher hands than Hal Morris.
Yeah.
Did Sean Casey have rough hands?
You know what? Maybe.
Stugats.
Good take, Mike. Good, strong take on that. You know what? It's usually followed by an opinion.
The mayor. I feel like the mayor had soft hands. I do.
I do too. I think
very
baby soft
yeah.
hand. Gentle caressing hands. Yeah, I believe that too.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats.
We're presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code Dan for a special offer when you sign up. That's code Dan only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
What are you laughing about, Mike Ryan? You are roaring with laughter. Mike Florio, Pro Football Talks founder, is with us, and we need to introduce him correctly here because the man is a bit of a legend. I don't know if the a bit is diluting it too much because he created something out of nothing, a media empire, got to the football trough, information trough before everybody else, and his story is interesting because he went from law to make a career in a very difficult business. So let's introduce him correctly. With Amin has been working on his broadcaster voice, and we were told that his book, Playmakers, How the NFL Really Works and Doesn't, is available wherever books are sold. What's that about?
Oh, in recent decades, the NFL has simultaneously become an athletic, financial, and cultural powerhouse, in a league that can't seem to go more than a few weeks without a scandal. Whether it's about domestic violence, performance-enhancing drugs, racism, or head trauma, the NFL seems to always be in some kind of trouble. Yet, no matter the drama, the TV networks keep showing games, the revenue keeps rising, and the viewers keep tuning in. How can a sports league or any organization operate this way? Why do the negative stories keep happening, and why don't they ever seem to affect the bottom line? In this wide-ranging book, Mike Florio takes readers from the boardroom to the locker room, from draft day to the Super Bowl, answering these questions and more, and showing what really goes on in the sport that America can't seem to quit. Known for his constant stream of new information and incisive
Are you
commentary.
reading the entire book?
Florio delivers again in this book with new insights and reporting on scandals past and present. This book will be the talk of the league, whether the league likes it or not.
Goosebumps.
Wow. Can you say the autumn wind is a pirate just once?
I'm getting the audiobook.
How many millions?
We should have hired him to do the audiobook if I had any idea.
Mike, thank you for joining us. Legally, just legally, can you take me through what it is that this arbiter ruled and what you found most interesting legally? Because it seems to me like whatever it is that she explained, she just landed on precedent and was going to not go much further than 6 games.
Legally, here's the most significant aspect of her decision. Legally, because all that matters from her decision as relates to the next step in this are her factual findings. Doesn't matter that she decided to suspend him for 6 games based upon her factual findings. What matters to Roger Goodell or his designee is what those findings were, because those are binding and cannot be changed. And she found, Dan, that he did it. She found that the testimony was credible, that he did it. She found that his testimony was not credible. She very politely called him a liar for a categorical denial of any wrongdoing whatsoever. That gives Roger Goodell, if and when, and I think it's a matter of when, not if, the league chooses to appeal the decision to the league itself, everything he needs to say, thank you for your service. Thank you for the findings. We disagree that it should be only 6 games. It will be whatever I, the guy whose name is on every football, chooses it should be. So this, even though at first you had Browns fans who were like, oh, it's only 6 games. Yeah, it's only 6 games for now. The most significant fact is her findings of fact, which allows the commissioner to do whatever he wants.
You're the first person I've heard say that. I've been wondering in these 3 days, is he actually going to end up doing the quote unquote right thing by taking all the power back, ignoring and nuking the arbiter, the system, and going right back to, no, I make the rules?
And that is the system. That's what the union agreed to. They agreed to an idea that they'll have an independent person make the first decision, but the commissioner still has final say. So the person with final say has all the power. And I remember when they were selling the new CBA to the players 2 years ago, at one point I saw it sold as they're going to have an independent person make the final decision. And then you get the actual document. It's like, that's not what it is. The guy who was judge, jury, executioner, and appeals court is still the appeals court. And that's all that matters. So as it relates to this issue, Dan, and more broadly, the power balance between management and labor, the league's not going to give up its right to be the final say here, because it's a reminder to the union, if you don't like it, let's go back to the bargaining table. If you don't like it, come take it back from us. You gave us this power, and we're going to use it. I fully expect them to appeal, and I fully expect the suspension to be more than 6 games.
Is there additional reporting with that, or are you just following the breadcrumbs of legality here?
This is just my experience as a lawyer and 21 years of covering this sport every day. Everything I know about the league, everything I know about Roger Goodell, and based on reading that ruling, it all points to Goodell being motivated and pissed off, frankly, about the outcome and the finding that not only did he do it, but he lied when he testified about what he did or didn't do. I just think it all adds up to a significant suspension. And remember this, Ray Rice, 2-game suspension in 2014. Video comes out of the knockout punch in the elevator. It almost brings the house down on Goodell. He resolved at that point, I believe, to never be accused of being too lenient with a player again. That's why Ezekiel Elliott got 6 games, never arrested, never charged, never even sued. He got 6 games. We're still in that mode. We're still in that mindset. He's not going to allow himself to be scrutinized and criticized for being too lenient. I just think it's a matter of time before he bangs the gavel on something more than 6. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a full season. I'm not saying it will be, but I won't be surprised if it is.
What's easiest for him to do? Like, what is the nobility? If he really cares about this, if they want to signal to tomorrow's female customers and the mothers that they've been marketing to with, we want your kids in the future. We don't want America's precious resource of football players to die because women don't want to be around our sport. What is the easy play here for Goodell? What is the hard play? What do the owners want from Goodell?
Well, and that's one of the keys here, because he's going to talk to the owners, the ones who run the league, 5, 6, 7 of them who really have the power. And at one point I thought maybe guys like Robert Kraft and Jerry Jones would counsel against pushing this any farther, because they got dragged into it before Judge Robinson, because one of the arguments is you've got to have proportional punishment when you're disciplining a player, given that the personal conduct policy says owners will be held to a higher standard. And we've got folks who either haven't been punished or weren't punished enough. But they kind of fell out of this. They didn't take a lot of shrapnel in the 15-page decision from Judge Robinson. And I think they could get to the point where they're confident that if this thing goes forward, if there's a federal lawsuit that's filed at some point, they're not going to be dragged through the mud as part of it. We'll see. But I think that's a factor. But the easiest thing for Goodell to do is just say, look, we've agreed to this process. I have the final say. It comes back to me. And Dan, look, we already know that the league employees who were handling this hearing wanted, on behalf of Roger Goodell, a full season suspension. So I don't see why he wouldn't want those same employees to push for the same thing, and then he makes the final decision. It really is ridiculous when you think about it. The league is appealing the decision to the league. So the guy who tells the league employees to appeal the decision is the guy who's handling the appeal. It's just one big dog chasing its tail, but at the end of the day, it's going to end up where it wants to be.
But the arbiter is saying you don't have the right to make up the rules. The arbiter is saying these things are collectively bargained. The arbiter is saying, even though he's guilty of those things, you don't have the right to make unprecedented rules as you go along, Roger Goodell. You don't have that right. We read those pages. They're going to ignore that part of it and just going to take what the independent arbiter gave them as ammunition.
I see nothing in the CBA or in the personal conduct policy that requires Roger Goodell to give any credence to her application of the personal conduct policy to the facts. The only thing he's stuck with are the facts. And this gets a little bit too into the weeds legally, but a lot of times when there's an appeal process, there's some sort of standard of deference that is given to the judge's decision. It's only overturned if it's arbitrary and capricious. It's only overturned if it's an abuse of discretion. There's no standard like that here. The way I read it, as long as he doesn't introduce new facts, and in this case, he doesn't need to, he can do whatever he wants. He can pick whatever number he wants, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. The way it was bargained by the union, he's got final say, and I expect him to exercise final say.
What difference does it make that he is now at odds with the union that continues to try to come after this power in various ways, and through collective bargaining, he does not have to treat them as partners because here he can be iron-fisted commissioner who does whatever he wants?
We've seen it from day one. I remember when he became the commissioner in late August of 2006, I started to hear from people that I know who deal with these disciplinary issues that all of a sudden, they're not cutting deals anymore. All of a sudden, everything's going to a hearing. All of a sudden, the league is taking full advantage of the power that it has. And so many of these things are rigged. They really are. It's set up for the NFL to be the one who makes the decision, whether it's the John Gruden case where he's trying to fight and so far has been successful in keeping the case out of arbitration. Brian Flores and the other coaches suing with him, trying to stay out of arbitration because the league creates its own in-house system for dispensing justice, and it's dispensed by Roger Goodell or his designee, which means whoever he taps on the shoulder that's going to do whatever he wants them to do. So I think this is no different than what we've seen for the 16-year tenure of Roger Goodell. He has power, and he never hesitates to use it.
Mike, I found the Browns' approach yesterday so misguided because throughout this entire process, Deshaun has maintained his innocence, hasn't apologized, has shown zero contrition, and the franchise has stood by him, and now they accept the results of this investigation. Stefanski went on record as saying that. Well, the result of the investigation is this person did it. The things that people were saying about him was he did it. And their first statement on the fact was, this might be triggering. He has shown contrition, which was a lie. Now, how do you reconcile that? Where do the Browns go from here? Because I thought they totally botched it yesterday. They now know that the person that is running their huddle is a serial sexual assaulter.
Well, and I think the statement that was issued by ownership yesterday, and you referred to some of it, it's basically poking the bear in the ass on a day when the bear's already upset. Why are you trying to shame Roger Goodell into not exercising his right to appeal the decision to himself? It had echoes of what the union did on Sunday. We were like, hey, we respect the decision. They knew which way the wind was blowing. We respect the decision. We call on the league to do the same. Yeah, we call on the league to give up its power to put a different decision in place of the one that's made by Judge Robinson. I think it was horribly misguided by the Browns. And you're right. They say we accept her decision, and he's been remorseful all the time. Well, if you accept her decision, you have to accept her decision that he's shown no remorse. So you're not accepting her decision if you're rejecting whichever parts don't fit with your narrative. I just thought it was a horrible mistake by the Browns. And at a time when there's already people pissed off about the contract, fully guaranteed, 5 years, $230 million, sets a precedent that other owners have to deal with. They're just asking for more trouble, and they're asking for a longer suspension by handling it the way they did yesterday.
I want to ask you some questions legally, and I suppose we could do this with you every week with the NFL, but the Gruden and Flores lawsuits, what were the most interesting things in there that you're following, and where do you think those things are going to end up?
Well, let me start with the Gruden case, because he's already won at the trial court level the question of whether or not the case stays in court or goes to arbitration. The NFL will appeal that as far as they can. With the St. Louis relocation case, the NFL appealed the question of arbitration all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, the court didn't take on the case, but it bogs it down. I think the Gruden case is going to be bogged down through multiple layers of appeal, but eventually we find out who ordered the code red. Eventually we find out where those emails came from. Were they from Goodell? Were they from Dan Snyder? Small universe of people had those documents that were weaponized against John Gruden. And it's a balancing act, because you could say he got what he deserved, but also, wait a minute, this is a big secret investigation. They're going to carve off 5 pages and give them to the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal and get a guy run out of his job. So we're going to find out who did it, and we're going to find out what else may be in those documents as well as part of it, but it's going to take some time. Same thing with Flores. There's going to be an extended fight on whether or not the case should be in arbitration. And what they're trying to do now, and I haven't seen a ruling on this, they want to engage in discovery. They want to take Roger Goodell's deposition. They want to find out what he's been paid. They want to find out what bias he may have in being the arbitrator for matters involving the teams. And that's been an obvious problem for years, and nobody seemed to have an issue with it. Wait a minute, the guy who's in charge of the sport, who gets paid $65 million a year by these owners, is the guy who's designated to resolve lawsuits brought in-house against these same owners. Well, how's anyone who's pursuing justice ever going to get a fair shake when he's deciding cases involving the people who pay him? So they're really making that a big issue. And it's overdue. We've just kind of accepted it because that's always the way it's been. But it's just inherently wrong for them to expect to have what I call a secret rigged kangaroo court in every situation where someone is trying to get justice.
When you mentioned 6 or 7 owners run the league, I assumed that Bob Kraft was one of them, and I assumed that all that ownership stuff was about his incident here in South Florida and them looking like, never mind higher standard. He's dabbling. We never saw photos. We never saw anything. Everything vanished. It's rich people making everything go away. Explain to me how Bob Kraft plays into some of the inner workings on the Deshaun thing.
Well, one of the best arguments that I thought going into the hearing was this idea that the personal conduct policy says, black and white, like 4th, 5th paragraph, owners are held to a higher standard. Owners will be subject to greater discipline than players. So Jeffrey Kessler, who represented Watson in this, decided we'll make an issue out of that. What about Bob Kraft, who was charged with solicitation? Charges were dropped because it was an illegal effort to capture these images, and there were people who were victims in this. There was a class action. I don't know how it turned out, but people who just went for massages were being secretly videotaped in various states of undress. It's a horrible way for the police to do business. The case went away, and my understanding at the hearing, it was acknowledged that they investigated Kraft, but they didn't impose any discipline on him. Now, the difference is he was never accused of trying to engineer a sexual encounter out of a massage. The sexual encounter was given to him during the massage. So it wasn't the same as Deshaun Watson, but that dynamic became part of the hearing. The fact that Jerry Jones, the Cowboys voyeurism scandal that kind of bubbled up and then disappeared earlier this year that I thought should have been a bigger deal, that was mentioned. Daniel Snyder was mentioned. It didn't get a whole lot of traction in her ruling, though, because she was more focused on the precedent, the notice that the players had regarding what punishment they would face for this kind of issue. But if it goes forward, it could come back again. And in every case where the NFL tries to discipline a player under the personal conduct policy, they need to be ready to face the argument that if there's any similar case out there involving an owner, you failed to have the same standard, and you definitely failed to hold that owner to a higher standard.
The fact that the arbitrator said flatly that Deshaun Watson was lying when we are the NFL and we expect cooperation with our interviews, and if you don't cooperate, the penalties will be even stiffer. Yet more ammunition for this theory you have that this will be appealed. Roger Goodell will appeal this to himself. The absurd sentence of Roger Goodell is going to save the day heroically, and it's going to be the right thing because he's going to ignore everything that was done here, all the money spent on lawyers, take just the facts that he wants and do the right thing.
And I think it will motivate him to do it. In the past, when there have been examples of someone lying or trying to obscure the truth, they've been more motivated. Remember Tom Brady, the destroyed cell phone? That made them more motivated to suspend him for Deflategate. The Saints, a decade ago with the bounty scandal, they had been questioned about it. They had supposedly lied about it. That made him more motivated. And there is something to be said for expecting people to tell the truth when there is a quasi-legal proceeding and you're put under oath and you testify. If you don't tell the truth, it's hard enough to figure out what the truth is if the witnesses are committed to telling the truth. When you start lying, you obscure the effort to get to the truth. And once Goodell figures out that that's exactly what she was saying, I think it makes him more upset and more determined to ramp this up from 6 games to whatever he's going to do, full season or whatever he chooses to do.
Florio, you and I are in the same camp, not understanding how it is that Tom Brady almost coming to the Dolphins with Sean Payton was not a bigger story nationally. Please explain to me why no one cares.
Well, here's where I get in trouble. No one cares because ESPN didn't report it. NFL Network didn't report it. So it was never made a big deal by them. It never became the talking point for 3 days of Sports Center and every studio show. It never got traction because ESPN ignored it because ESPN didn't break it. And I assume that Schefter knew about it. And maybe this is just one of those third rails that he's not going to touch because he's a Michigan guy and doesn't want to piss off Brady, and he's tight with Don Yee, and Yee represents Peyton and Brady. And maybe the table was set for Schefter to be the one to break it to the world if Brian Flores doesn't file his lawsuit. But I guarantee you, if Flores doesn't file that lawsuit the same day Brady announced his retirement, the next week, Brady's announced as a minority owner of the Dolphins. Not long after that, Sean Payton is the head coach of the Dolphins. And at some point, May or June, Tom Brady unretires. They work out a deal with the Buccaneers, and he becomes the quarterback of the Dolphins. It was happening. And it could still, in theory, happen next year. I doubt that it will, but it was happening earlier this year, and Flores derailed it.
It's amazing. How is that, again, a racist lawsuit by the coach derails Tom Brady becoming a Dolphin and nobody cares, and you don't have, that's your theory on Schefter. You don't know that we were theorizing that perhaps being burned by the fact that it wasn't actually a retirement, that they caught the luckiest break ever.
Man, you don't have to pile on. He laid it out rat-a-tat-tat style what was going on there. It was clear and well done, Mike.
Okay,
great hair.
Very good.
Well, here's my prediction. Week 1, Sunday, ESPN, NFL Countdown, they'll report it as if it's brand new. That's what I'm waiting for.
Good talking to you. Good maiden voyage on the show, and you nailed the dismount, sir.
What my Kyler Murray
you, guys.
question?
What about your Kyler Murray question?